So I've decided to try to do an experiment today. The gas gauge on this bike, I think, is inaccurate. And I used to get a lot better gas mileage before I did the stage 1 upgrade. And, you know, the average miles per gallon doesn't equate to how far I go on the bike. I should be getting over 200 miles on a tank of gas. And instead, you know, I'm filling up around 150 just because I'm concerned I'm going to run out at 180 range. Probably doesn't sound like that big of a difference, but you know, I used to stop at 180 to fill up, and now I'm stopping earlier. So I've got 2 good gas containers on the bike with me that basically little small bottles where I carry 1 gallon of gas, sometimes on longer trips out in the rural area. So I put that on, and I'm going to attempt to ride around until I run out of gas. Now, I may end up finishing the last few miles in a school parking lot, or maybe my driveway. It's not exactly duplicating real riding experience if I go around, like, say, a school parking lot, but at least I'll have a pretty good idea. And you can see right now on my dial, it says 53 miles per gallon. You know, it's a 4-gallon tank, so obviously it should be well over 200. And it just doesn't feel like that. Now it's saying right now I have 40 miles left on the range. And it's supposed to change to low fuel when you have 1 gallon left. So if I'm getting 53 miles per gallon and it still doesn't have the low fuel light with a range of 40 miles, then that would suggest I'm getting even less than 40 miles per gallon. Now, if I'm looking at that wrong, one of you guys can comment in the comment section. You can see I've been 143 miles. So if you add 40 to that, that gets me to 183 miles. So I'm just trying to figure out, I always felt the gauge was pretty darn reliable. So is it possible after the stage 1 upgrade that it got that inaccurate? Or rather, not inaccurate. Is it possible after the stage 1 upgrade that the miles per gallon really deteriorated like that? But I've reset the miles per gallon a few times, and it always pops back up to 51 to 53 miles per gallon that it says I'm getting. I don't want to run out of gas on this road. It's really not a good place to pull over. Actually, all of the main arteries around here are not roads that I'd really want to run out of gas on. There's not too many areas I'd like to run out of gas on. I was on one of the main thoroughfares in Richmond when my gas sputtered. My engine sputtered at a stoplight, and I shook the engine around and it started back up, and I limped into a gas station. I think that was actually on my Scout, maybe. I can't remember if that was the Scout or this bike. But we're going to take a little ride and see what happens. Alright, the low fuel light just came on. So that would indicate 1 gallon of gas. And it happened at roughly 39 miles per gallon. Now, if I was getting 39 miles per gallon, I would have to fill up at 156 miles. So now you see it's back to showing 39 miles projected range. But just a minute ago, the low fuel light came on indicating 1 gallon of gas remaining. And then right beside it, it says I'm getting 53 miles per gallon. So I just don't understand when you compare those two, what I'm to believe. Now the low fuel light just came back on. The 40 miles per gallon would be 160 miles. I think with some of the early literature I saw, they actually described this tank as 3.996 or something, so I'm just counting it as 4 gallons. So I'm at 146. 40 more gallons would get me to 185 to 186. So I think I might have to make a couple of trips up and down. What I'm interested to see is if I really go closer to 200. Now when I filled this up the last time, I went, the way I always normally fill it. Like I kept thinking, I wonder if I'm not really putting in a full tank, and that's why I'm not getting the distance I used to get. So I've really tried to top it off. But when I was getting 200 miles, I wasn't doing anything really different with how I filled up. I fill it up as far as I think it's safe to do so, and I go on my way. Now I'm having to pay attention to how I fill it up, which I wasn't doing before. Some people have theorized with the stage 1 upgrade now I must be really driving a lot faster, and frankly I think that stage 1 is just for cosmetic. It barely puts a dent in the horsepower, more for cosmetic. And I don't tend to drive super fast anyway, or do hard stops anyway. Most of my riding is pretty much like this, 55 to 65 on back roads. Sometimes I'm in the suburbs, I'm braking more often. But maybe as I've gotten more experience, I go faster than I used to. But I still just think the gauges ought to be correct. Like, I'd like to be able to trust it a little bit, but I really just, I do want to reset the trip meter and be able to know how far I can really go. So I'm going to do it this way. How far do you think it's going to go? So another thing I really don't like about it is when it changes to low, it just doesn't give you a range. And if you weren't paying attention, you don't exactly know on which mile it came on. So that's another reason I'd like to see how far I can really go. Alright, so I made it to the school parking lot and I've turned around. I think we went about 8 miles or so coming down this road. So I'm gonna head back, and you can see the gas meter is on the right and it's showing like a little red speck. So that's the low fuel, and you can see the low fuel indicator. It still says 53 miles per gallon. I've been 155.9. Alright, so now just checking in, we're at 162 miles. I feel like that episode of Seinfeld. Everything relates to a Seinfeld, right? Mr. Kramer driving the car to see how far they could mooch on their neighbor's gas. So we're living a Seinfeld episode, driving this to see how far we can push it past the needle. And we'll see what happens. Now you'll see that I've been driving up and down this road. You'll see pretty much on empty and low. Been 169 miles. like it just sputtered out of gas. That didn't feel too safe. I think I might have to scoot into a subdivision or something. That definitely felt like it had lost some gas power there when I pulled out. We're out at 186.7. Yep, we are out. I think I'm gonna back up here and turn on the hazard lights. We are out of gas, folks, at 186.7. Well, we're filling it up with gas. It's nice of a couple people to see if I was okay. I'm gonna put the other one in here just to be safe. Then I'm gonna head on down the road. Let's fill up. See how many it takes. It just doesn't make any sense to me. 3.233. Right. We put in 3.537. One of those bottles I put in wasn't completely full. I'm going to check that when we get back, what size those bottles were. So this was 3.537. Apologies that my microphone became detached at some point there near the end. So we went 186.7 miles. So I double checked the bottles. Between the two of them, if they were completely full, it would be around half a gallon. And one of them wasn't completely full. So we made it 186.7 miles, which I think is about right for my gas mileage. Now, if that was accurate, the bike would show a gas mileage of 46.6 miles, but it always shows my miles per gallon at over 50. So I'm just going to track this at 186.7 going forward as kind of roughly how far I could go.